Hello and welcome to another edition of Know the Terrain, and in this one we're going to be considering what I've termed the Philidor structures, so that's that arising after these moves. This central pawn configuration, I should mention at the start that I've made my life and yours somewhat easier by not seeking to consider positions with a white pawn on c4, such as would arise, for instance, if we took the mainline King's Indian. So this is the same structure, but with some significant differences because of white's pawn on c4. Instead, I've tried to slightly narrow the workload by talking about positions with a white pawn on c2 or c3 rather than a pawn on c4. And you'll note that relatively few of the games come from the Philidor. The majority of these positions with pawns on e4 and d4 against pawns on e5 and d6 arise from other e4, e5 openings. So we'll see, of course, examples with the Italian game where this type of structure tends to arise. After white plays with, say, h3, rook e1, knight f1, and d4. And the majority of games in which it arises is, of course, from the Ruy Lopez. So if we look at this position of the closed mainline Ruy Lopez, either d4 directly or h3 followed quickly by d4 is going to lead to the same structure. But I thought that I shouldn't call it the Ruy Lopez structure because one of the features of the Ruy Lopez is that it doesn't have any individual characteristic structure. You've got lots of lines where, for instance, black takes on e4 and plays other things, the Berlin endgame and so forth. The structure tends to be very fluid. So the Philidor structure is the shorthand, but as I hope you'll appreciate, looking at this structure in detail isn't only of benefit for dealing with that opening. It improves overall, I think, your handling of positions after e4, e5, and even some minor variations of the Sicilian where it arises as well. So the reason why I picked this structure, I think, is because it's one of the most complex but at the same time least explored structures in the game, because it can result in so many different types of positions. So we'll see that there are symmetrical positions where white takes on e5 and black recaptures with a pawn. And I've tried to devote special attention to those because while they may seem at first glance to be quite innocuous and perhaps equal, in fact they contain some poison, as has been illustrated by a number of top-level games, including Carlsen-Topalov, where in that particular structure, Carlsen managed to whip up an extremely threatening, although ultimately unsound, kingside attack. But in addition to that particular version of the structure, we also see closed type positions arising where black plays c5 and white meets it with d5, thus closing the center and directing play to the wings, where white will typically try to play on the king side with h3 and perhaps g4, although as we'll see that's double-edged, and black will typically seek to play on the queen side. We also see a number of examples where black takes on d4, which creates an entirely new range of positions, either when white takes with a piece, as we'll see, or when white takes with a pawn, which leads to white having a perfect centre for the moment, but one which black will normally seek to undermine, either with d5 followed by establishing a piece on e4, or c5 when he can even consider taking again on d4 and leaving a position just with a white e-pawn against a black d-pawn, but a position which tends to be quite full of dynamic potential for black. So overall, I've tried to also steer clear of, I'd say, very theoretical main lines. Clearly, any structure which commonly arises in the closed Ruy-Lopez, we could just spend the entire time talking about the theory of the Shigaran or the Breyer or one of these systems. Now, that's been done by a lot of people more qualified than me, and I'd certainly refer you to that material for the theory on the Ruy-Lopez. What I've sought to do here is pick slightly less theoretical material. So often it's where white has picked lines with an early d3, for instance, an anti-Marshall system or something of that nature, and follows it up subsequently with d4. And as you'll see if you follow top-level tournaments, this type of approach is becoming more and more popular, certainly at the top level, that white is avoiding lines like the Marshall attack, avoiding the main lines of the Ruy-Lopez, and seeking instead to get a quiet position from which he can outplay his opponent. And clearly, in those positions where theoretical knowledge isn't necessarily available, understanding the position and understanding the structure becomes of paramount importance, whether you're playing with white or black. So overall, that's why I picked the structure. I've found the games to be some of the most interesting high-level encounters that I've seen in the past year. In particular, Caruana, who has probably been the revelation of 2012 in the chess world, owes a lot of his important successes to victories within this structure, which he handles with really a remarkable degree of mastery. But also, of course, Magnus Carlsen and several other top players have been very, very effective here. So this is a structure where I think a lot of the most interesting top-level chess is being played at the moment. It's a structure which is fundamental to a lot of e4, e5 openings, and it's one which is very important to understand, I think. So hopefully you'll enjoy the games that I've selected and enjoy the DVD. Thanks very much for watching.